support group, and I started going to this support group, and I met other people very similar that were going through the same emotions, and it was good to talk to them and understand how they dealt with it, and that helped me. But I was still living a double life.
By 2014, as you say, you were still leading a double life. You were living as both Frank and Kelly, but you were approached by a newspaper. They came to your house, actually. They tracked you down, came to your house, and they told you that they were planning to, release an article kind of outing you to the world. But you decided to preempt that, and you did an exclusive interview with another paper, kind of telling your story and taking control of your narrative. What was the public reaction to Kelly?
It's very mixed. I had a lot of people said I was brave. A lot of people showed a lot of support. There was a lot of negativity online. There was a lot of insults, and there still is. But I do think the boxing world prepared me well. The keyboard warriors who sit there tapping on the board don't bother me one bit. So I actually laugh at it.
So you have become an advocate in your own way for trans people, for, as you say, transsexual people like yourself, and for LGBTQ rights. Why is it important for you now to speak out on behalf of the community?
I don't want people to be afraid to be true to themselves. I don't want people to struggle and have to hide. And at the end of the day, I don't see myself as anything other than a human being. And at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We're all members of the same club, the Human Race Club. We enter this world the same way. We all leave the world the same way. So in between, no matter what your colour is, your religion is, your nationality is, your sexuality or your gender is, you are a human being, and we should learn to respect each other. I'm not a great believer in labels or letters. The only letter I like is the letter R, respect. Respect to man as all as human beings.
You've said that for most of your life, you've had Kelly on one shoulder and Frank on the other, sort of competing. It sounds exhausting, but is there anyone on your shoulder now?
No. Kelly is the person I am. I'm a happier person. But Kelly is taking the good points of Frank and molding them into Kelly. So, I don't see Frank as a dead person because I'm not buried. I'm still sitting here. I don't see my name Frank as my dead name. Some people still call me Frank. And so what's the issue if someone gets your name wrong? Let's move on with it. I don't want to start further or over someone misgendering me or calling me Frank Maloney because they see me in a crowd or they want to talk about boxing. If it's not malicious, it doesn't bother me.
But you're at peace now.
I'm very much at peace with myself. I live a very quiet life. I live a very happy life. I smile a lot more, and my family accept me, and we've all moved on. And that's what I say to the rest of the world. Let's all just move on together.
Our huge thanks to Kelly Maloney. She was speaking there to Asia. And now a story that takes us into a whole different world. Maybe one that you've not really ever considered. The inner workings of the brains of parrots. And the discovery that birds aren't really bird-brained at all. And this is all down to Irene Pepperberg. In the full episode, you can hear how her passion for birds started. Pet budgies her father bought her to keep her company after school. She adored their cheeky personalities, their colourful plumage, and loved how she could teach them to say a few words. But years later, she decided to investigate whether birds could do more than simply mimic human speech. Could they, she wondered, actually understand language? A lot of people in the scientific community thought she was crazy. The feedback on her first research grant proposal literally asked her what she was smoking. But she persevered, and by working really closely with an African grey parrot called Alex, Irene Pepperberg showed that bird intelligence was way beyond what anyone imagined. Here's Alex in a BBC recording from 1995.
Okay, what we have on this tray are objects of different colors, shapes, and materials. And we're going to ask Alex to tell us the matter of the object that's orange. Okay, Alex, you look on the tray. You can touch them all.
What matter orange, Alex?
Oh, good
Whoa,
boy.
good bird. Yeah, good birdie.
After years of meticulous experiments, Irene showed that Alex's walnut-sized brain had a huge cognitive power. He understood numbers, shape, colour, what things were made of, and he had a vocabulary of over 100 words. Irene describes their relationship as colleagues. They worked together almost daily for 30 years. Until one day, without warning, that was over. Irene Pepperberg spoke to Joe.
Tell me, would you, about your last conversation with Alex?
It was a good night routine. It wasn't special. I mean, everybody writes it up as this very special thing. Every night, he was like a young child. He did not want to go to bed. So it would be these, want some water, the glass of water before going to bed. Want tickles, so we'd finally get through all that. And it would be like, okay, I've got to go eat dinner. I'll see you tomorrow. And there would be this exchange. You'd be good. I love you. I'll see you tomorrow. Go back and forth. And this is a good night routine. But let him know that, okay, we're done for the day. The lights are going to go off soon. He was on a timer switch. Lights are going to go off soon. And tomorrow, I'll be back.
And the next morning, you got the news that he had died at night. Do you know why he died, Steve?
According to the vet, it seemed to be arterial fibrillation. Something just happened.
You have insisted that he was your colleague and you liked him very much. I mean, I know you had this good night routine and I love you, but these were words. How did you take the news that he had died?
That broke the dam, because all those feelings that were pent up for all those years that I couldn't ever admit existed came through. It was devastating. I mean, this was my closest colleague for 30 years. We worked together. Not every single day, but almost every day for 30 years. And he was gone.
When you say the dam burst, what happened?
It was just overwhelming. And, where to start? So, one thing that happened was, of course, all the phone calls. Once it got out, and the phone calls, and whenever I did interviews at that point, I would go into what I called interview mode. So, get the phone in your ear, close my eyes, concentrate on the voice at the other end of the phone, and just answer the questions. And so I was doing that, 10 hours a day. Thousands of emails were coming in. Boxes of letters were coming in from people, and this was all over the world. And I was in shock. I was in complete shock. It was at least a month before I knew which end was up.
That's not, it's like you're grieving for a person.
Well, yes. And certainly you grieve for your pets. A lot of people don't realize how difficult that is to grieve for your pets. And this was more. This was my closest, the individual that I had the closest relationship with in the world. Really, when you think about it, for 30 years.
A lot of people have read about Alex's death in magazines and newspapers in different parts of the world, which carried obituaries of a parent.
Yes.
It's a little unusual.
Well, it was, the back page of The Economist, that was really striking. There were 3 separate obituaries in the New York Times. It was so unexpected.
It's also that level of attention and seriousness with which Alex's life was being taken was a validation of everything you had been doing with him for 30 years. You'd started out with such resistance and skepticism, and this must have been an important moment for thinking, wow, we have achieved a lot together.
I only came to that point several weeks later when the shocking worn off. I was so involved in answering emails and letters and things like that. It was only when that started to calm down that came across to me that, oh my gosh, yes, this really is a validation of how important he was.
What would you say his legacy has been?
Well, I hope it's been to make people more sensitive, not just to all that he did and all that his accomplishments meant for the idea of avian cognition, which at the time I started, that was an oxymoron, avian cognition. But also to pay attention to people who have some ideas that sound a bit off and sound difficult. And not to say that one should, just take them at face value, but to look and see, okay, so this person has this crazy, what looks like a crazy idea. Let's see, can they back it up with some evidence and some suggestions? I mean, that's what I did. I didn't just say, oh, I want to talk to a parrot. This is going to work because I had a budgeted talk when I was a kid. I had a basis for making my argument. And for people to at least take the time when an idea seems crazy to begin with, to see if the person with that idea has done their homework. All the things that would give some justification for supporting, at least some beginnings of support to look into the project.
Irene Pepper, reminding us of the power of following that niggling hunch, no matter what others think. She was speaking to Joe Fitchett. So that's all from our contributors and from all of us here at Outlook for this week. And also remember that the team is always here for you. In fact, I want you just for a second to picture an office somewhere in London full of people who spend their whole time jumping up and down and talking about stories they found online, heard on the street, seen with their own eyes, gathering these stories in with their arms, leafing through them, interviewing people, and then figuring out how to tell them to the world. Well, you've just imagined the Outlook team. Hearing your stories, or even what you think of the ones that you've heard, is such a great part of our work. So don't be shy. Email us on outlook@bbc.com or send us a WhatsApp if you like on our number +44 330 678 2707. I'm India Atkinson. Thanks for joining the Mixtape. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll be back again next week.
BBC World Service and now Witness History with me, Jane Wilkinson. I'm taking you back to 1994 and the sinking of the Estonia ferry 30 years ago, one of the deadliest shipping tragedies since the Titanic.
More than 800 people drown when a ferry turns over and sinks in a Baltic storm. It happened in the dark and it happened quickly. Most were below, sleeping, and never had a chance. As stunned relatives mourn one of Europe's worst human disasters.
There was a person standing there screaming out, "This is the end of the world and the end of things." It was just chaotic.
That's Urban Lambuchon, one of the 137 survivors. On September the 28th, 1994, he was a booking manager for S-Line, the company that ran the ferry service between Estonia and Sweden.
Estonia was about 16,000 tons, could carry 52 heavy lorries, or up to 460 cars and 2,000 passengers.
That was the ship, MS Estonia. At the time, the Soviet Union were in collapse and Estonia became a free country. And for the Estonians, this was the white boat to freedom, to opening up with other countries.
And discussions to expand the service were why Urban had travelled to Estonia. The meetings in Tallinn had gone well, and Urban and his colleague Thomas Persson were now heading home across the Baltic Sea to Stockholm.
And we decided, hey, before we go to bed to our cabins, let's meet up and go down to Admiral's Pub on 5th deck, because there were a session of karaoke music.
On board had been people from at least 9 nations. It was a journey for both business and pleasure. Lorry drivers, a group of executives holding a conference, an outing of pensioners, 56 from just one town.
People were awake and there was good atmosphere, and Thomas said, hey, tonight I'm really gonna get up there and sing a song. His favorite song was, at the time, a song named Book My Lungs.
Realty's best. Yeah, now let's go.
He came back after he made the song, but saying that was brave. But then just in a sudden, the ship were rocking, like it hit something. Very sudden, abrupt in the rhythm of the ship. And the sound machine of the karaoke stopped. But then it took not more than 2 minutes. Then the ship started to tilt starboard. And there were stuff falling in the bar, and there was a loud sound of crashing the glasses, the cool machine, and there was this Estonian young beautiful girl, and seeing her scareful face became some kind of a signal. So I looked at Thomas looked to me, we need to act. Hey, let's get up from deck 7. We were aiming for getting outside where the lifeboat and life jackets are located.
A Mayday message was sent saying the roll-on, roll-off ferry had developed a severe list in waves up to 30 feet high. Then there was silence.
And we had this perception that there will be immediately panic. That was not the case. Some people were frozen, others were acting, supporting and helping. We were telling people to find yourself up on deck 7.
Many of her passengers would have been asleep in cabins, but there was time for some to get up on deck. The weather was foul, the ferry 20 miles from the nearest small island of Finland, and the water was very cold.
Coming on deck 7, everything went so extremely fast, and the angle was kind of growing more and more, and the ship became very unstable, rocking with a lot of water coming in. So the staff didn't have a chance to get supporting, aiding and guiding, none at all.
The vessel tilted, then the engine stopped. The bottom of the ship filled with water.
So I have had some questions. Weren't you afraid? Don't know. Maybe, but not what I can recognize. It was just acting intuitively in the flow. So the focus became, I need to get a life jacket. Then it turned out to be a chain of people providing life jackets to others. That's the situation where Thomas and I came away from each other. What I can assume, based on the knowledge of the empathical person Thomas was, is that he was doing everything he could to support people.
A number of elderly people on board had particular difficulty in reaching the lifeboats.
Now the angle might be 30-something degrees. A little bit up on the hull of the ship there was the plastic boxes for life rafts, and that became the new focus. But when doing that, I was passing a woman standing there without a life jacket, and she grabbed me, "Give me your life jacket." And I was just focused on action. So I took my arm, put her aside and said, "No, I'm trying to release those lifeboats and get off me." But luckily though, I met this woman afterwards, and she did survive miraculously, and she was on the lifeboat. She got rescued by a helicopter after a couple of hours. For me that was wonderful to know that she did also survive.
The effect of this tragedy cannot yet be gauged. The understandable confusion about the numbers of people on board and the survivors has added to the stress.
I would say the tilt angle was very high right now. From now on it will go fast. It will flip over. I need to get over the ship to the other side towards the water, where the lifeboats might be placed. I just need to get there. You know, these vertical railings in the helicopter platform became some kind of a ladder, and I was fumbling, I was falling, I was hurt. I cannot remember anything. It was total focus on not stopping, and I was aiming towards the funnel part of the ship, and then it turned over totally 90 degrees, where these walls became the floor. Standing there, looking down into the water where the life rafts are drifting. There was heavy waves, and I really couldn't jump. What the hell should I do? And just right there was this signal from the ship. That became the signal to me, now to jump. And again, I didn't feel any hurt or pain. Can't remember the water. It was cold. And then I saw this life raft. I remember just flying right into it.
The rescue operation involved 4 countries: Sweden, Finland, Denmark and Estonia. The rescue crews plucked up both the living and the dead. But by mid-morning, it was evident that only a small number of those on board were to be found.
And just in a sudden, there was another hand and arm holding into the life raft, screaming for help. And I lifted him, and that was Lithuanian lorry driver Arturas. And I helped him. He was just in his underwear and life jacket, and pulled him in. We were then holding each other so we could get warmth. We were then drifting, but after a while I could see a ship in the horizon, and that was the Viking line, Maria.
The Fairy Mariella had been first on the scene. The sea was dotted with twinkling emergency lights on rafts and life jackets. The captain said they heard screaming coming from all around them. Perhaps 100 people struggling to keep afloat. The Mariella scooped up 17.
And the question could be, what happened then? Did you feel safe? No. I was still thinking, how did it go for Thomas? And what is happening? And then we took a step from the life raft, safe over the railing of Mariella. From that on, it was pure, like the energy went out.
852 people lost their lives in the disaster, including Thomas. Later, an inquiry found that Estonia's bow door locks had failed, allowing water to gush in. Another accident investigation is still ongoing.
But I was lucky. I was extremely lucky. It's a part of me and I cannot get rid of it. I'll live with it. And life is not there to take for granted.
Urban Lamberchon now works as a leadership consultant. He was talking to me, Jane Wilkinson, for Witness History. This is the BBC World Service.
We're in the El Garbia region in Egypt to uncover the hidden side of a trade that feeds one of the richest, most exclusive industries in the world.
The documentary brings you award-winning journalism, unheard voices, amazing culture, and global issues.
We try to look at the bigger picture.
The documentary at bbcworldservice.com or wherever you get your BBC podcasts. At bbcworldservice.com, fixing the world with Myra and Ruby. We're discovering how amazing knowledge is getting a rebirth and changing the lives of people in the jungles of Peru and the edge of the Sahara and in the mountains of North America. Next is Unexpected Elements. This is the BBC World Service, the world's radio station. Coming up after the news, the show that looks at the science behind the headlines. And this week the big news is Eugene left out of the office. The Unexpected Elements team are coming to Oregon Public Broadcasting in front of a live studio audience. So we've decided to find out what this American state is up to, science-wise. Which means we're looking at several cases of building with nature, whether that's wood that's been worked into made of tough as concrete, or improving concrete itself by adding bacteria or even heavy grains. You'll hear a case of nature's own pollution detectors and whether Cromwell Moss deserves a community medal for its service, and research the pinnacle of Oregon science. Should we crown between printing organs or those developing tiny human robots? That plus the wisdom of the Portland audience we're recording with, coming up after the news.
Hello, I'm Chris Barrow with the BBC News. Israel has mounted an